guys, I'm Jen Powell. I'm a talent agent, and I started my own agency called Jennifer Powell, Inc. about 2.5 years ago. I represent and have started girls like Danielle Bernstein from We Were What, Jules from Sincerely Jules, Mary Lawless Lee from Happily Grey, Teza, and actually Pia Baroncini, who's sitting right next to me. She's one of the girls that I manage as well. But I also want to introduce Pia, and I want to introduce Lauren Perinchief from Noted PR, and I want to let them introduce their businesses. And we kind of have this cool panel of chicks that I respect and love their businesses. So take it away, Pia, and tell us what you do.
I have a brand called LPA, which launched 3.5 years ago. It's under the Revolve umbrella, but I'm the creative director of that. And on the side, I do influencer stuff with Jen, which is great. We were just started working together, and it's been awesome so far, thank God. I'm like, this is so great. And then I also just launched a podcast called Pia's Pod, which is another thing that's been so fabulous and really contributed a lot to my life and my business.
My name is Lauren. I'm the co-founder of an agency called Noted, and we specialize in celebrity and influencer placement and events based here in Los Angeles.
Cool. So guys, we're going to talk about brand and influencer relationships, and I feel like I need to kind of sit like this so I could see and talk to you guys a little bit better. But so Lauren, maybe you could tell us, as far as your brands go, she has brands like Zimmermann and Jonathan Simkhai, and those are some of the, why don't you share the brands that you work with?
Yeah, we work with Zimmermann, Jonathan Simkhai, Ann Taylor, Roland Mouret, Perfect Moment, Lela Rose, Lala Lexa. We've worked with Good American over the past year, so a real range of luxury fashion to kind of mass market consumer brands as well.
Cool. So when your brands are looking to partner with influencers, like where are they starting? Like where do you guide them, and how do you really hone in on who you guys are ending up working with?
I mean, I think so far our focus has really been helping our brands find opportunities that seem organic. So most of those are coming from people that have some sort of relationship with the brand already, which we've been lucky to work with you on a lot of those things. So, coming to an event and saying, okay, this person is going to post, and they're going to end up posting for free, and maybe that turns into a Coachella opportunity where there's a larger financial compensation involved, or a trip for the launch of a store opening, or things like that. I think that for us, first and foremost, it's people of any follower size. So that could be millions, or that could be 40,000, as long as they're creating assets and content that are in line with what our brands are creating on their own.
Cool. So you recommend doing free posting initially?
I do.
The agent asks.
I do. I mean, I think it's a fine line, and I think, we all know that this industry is changing so rapidly. Mm-hmm. And so I think, one of the things that my business partner and I do constantly is try to get on the phone with people like Jen or our friends at DBA, whatever that may be, and try to figure out what the norms are for it currently. Because one week it could be one thing, 1 month it could be the next thing. And so, sometimes I get these responses back, and they're like, yeah, for a YouTube video, it's $40,000. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's crazy to me, because I don't understand, even on the brand side, what the benefit of that is. So I think starting in a place that's more organic for us, and obviously we have brands that are of a very specific size, right, but also then knowing, one thing that Jen's team is so great about is if someone comes to an event and they post their Instagram stories, they share back to us, like, hey, here's the statistics of what those posts got. Right. So then when the client comes to us and they say, we do have $15,000 for this project, I know that her clients get really high engagement. They're selling clothes for our brands because our clients are relaying that information to us. So it's really like the full picture, and not knowing that you don't know where the budgets are going to lie. And right, a brand could create really, really beautiful imagery but have $0 to spend. And so you can come out of the gate looking really aggressive if you're like, is there a budget for this? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you have to pay attention to how brands are spending their money. And I think it's kind of easy to figure it out, but maybe that's because I'm on the brand side. But I think if you do a scroll through someone's social feed, you can get an idea.
Okay, cool. Pia, how do you figure out what brands that you engage with?
I think as I have such a vulnerable, open, normal Instagram life that my goal is to always work with brands that align with my real life. Like I'm like dying to work with Nespresso because like my husband's Italian and we drink like 1,000 espressos a day. So I'm like, Nespresso, obviously, like that's, and I'll like message them and I'll at them all the time on Instagram.
And then you hit me up.
And then I'll be like, Jen, do you have a contact at Nespresso? I think really, I don't ever want to, listen, we all want to make money, but I don't want to abandon the women that follow me because I feel like I specifically truly have like a sisterhood on my Instagram, and I don't want to all of a sudden be like, toilet paper. Like, everyone uses it, right? Like, and then you're just like, oh God, this girl needs, like, that looked desperate, you know? So it's, for me, it's really about who do I love? What brands do I have an emotional connection to growing up?
Right.
Like I had a meeting with Dove once and I was like, I remember one of your first campaigns that was like body inclusive when I was 14, and it was for this body wash that came with this like scrubby thing, and everyone in the office was like, you remember that? I was like, yes, that was a big moment in my life. And so
Cool.
for me, it was like, yeah, it's obvious that we can work together because you have, you know, emotional connection to these brands. It ends up being more genuine for me, for my followers, for everyone.
Awesome. Cool. And then do you have any tips like for standing out amongst, I know everybody talks about the saturation in this market, this influencer market, and how to differentiate, and do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm
It's
in
an
an
issue.
interesting position because LPA, thank God, is like doing really well, and there's a lot of girls that want to work with LPA, and I'm on that side. I'm literally on both sides, where I'm like pitching myself to brands, and then I have girls pitching themselves to me all the time, which is great and interesting, and I love it. But I'll notice, especially because LPA is so affiliated to Revolve, and that's such a big blogger space and influencer space, that, you know, when we're kind of like vetting girls to work with, it's not. I really want to work with girls who have an interesting social presence, that are truly them, that maybe are like artists or like show what they're really doing, and it's not kind of this formulaic like hashtag outfit of the day, hashtag this, hashtag that, because they're trying to just break in that space. It is oversaturated. So the more interesting somebody is, or the more like they can bring LPA into the world in a cool way, that's who I want to gift clothes to, and that's who I want to partner with. And so I kind of feel the same way with myself. It's like I'm not gonna do what Danielle does. Like I'm not gonna do what Sincerely Jules does, because that's so specific to them. Like I live my life. I post a lot of like my mom and my husband and my dog, and like, you know, it's gonna be. I'm really into beauty. I'm really into health and wellness. So keeping what's true to me specifically is, and I notice that with everybody else, is I think is like the most important thing, instead of trying to carbon copy what's working with other influencers.
I agree. At what point in your career did you feel like you needed an agent? And I want to ask both of you, because I mean, you working with, like Lauren, people are reaching out to you directly with the brands. Like, are you more apt to work with a talent with an agent, or are you a little bit deterred by that? Or, and then the same question for you, Pia, like what point in your career were you like, oh my God, this is just too much for me and I need help? And is that a scary process as well, to find that person? And maybe you guys can both speak from your guys' perspective.
I think there's great agents, and we're friends with a lot of them, and they're smart with the way that they advise girls and guys to run their various businesses. But I think that there's you have to make sure that you have the right one that's an extension of you. And I like, with someone like Mary, who Jen works with, we've worked with Mary before. Mary started working with Jen, and it's nice when an agent steps in and it's a seamless relationship, and there's really no change, where you don't feel like the relationships that you've harvested organically are going away. Right. They should be working on your behalf to help you make money, to find opportunities to grow your business, of course, but also keeping and maintaining connections with brands that are going to be kind of your bridge brands, that like they can help you create your image, and they will help you get deals with other brands, right. which is something to think about as well. If you're posting and doing things for free for someone, the associations with those brands that you're doing things for organically can lead to other paid opportunities just based on that association, because of the luxury or the cachet or whatever it is.
I think obviously if you're going to, mental health is so important in this industry. So For me, managing all those projects by myself got to the point where it was overwhelming. I like to have someone that I can talk to and call and say, like, is this a good idea? Is this normal? Should I be doing this for free? Some advice, because I am in, otherwise I just feel like I'm in like a little bubble and I love someone that I can bounce ideas off of. So when it started getting a little bit overwhelming, I was working with an agent in New York, and the distance, I think, really was too hard, time change-wise, what the vibe is in New York. I'm LA-based. I think there's like kind of like a different vibe there with even the influencers that live in each of those cities. So what I did was I was working with Dior on a makeup event, and the Dior PR girl was there, and I have a good relationship with her. And I said, who's your favorite agent you like to work with? And she said, Jen Powell. And I said, well, then I want to work with Jen Powell. And I DM'd Jen Powell. And I also, what I liked is I looked at your Instagram and you were normal. You were like a normal person. You weren't trying to be famous yourself. You were like, this is what I do for my business, and then here's my family. And I was like, this is someone who has my same moral compass. This is somebody who has a really strong family life, who also clearly wants to be like a badass businesswoman. I vibe with that. That made sense for me. That's the kind of agent I want to work with. We had a great conversation. And so, it's been seamless. And I think a lot of the issues can come down to, like, yes, being really overwhelmed with contracts. And I'm not, with her specifically, I'm not worried that me not doing that negotiation and bringing in an agent is a weird new thing. She's really well respected. Everybody loves working with Jen. So I think having a good network and being really picky about your network and understanding the value of women who work well with other women is invaluable.
Yeah, cool, thanks. I think also, because I get asked that question a lot, and obviously there's a bandwidth issue per agent, how many people that they can manage, and to be really realistic about that. But also, my thought also is to look at the other girls and or guys, whatever, talent, and the businesses that you admire, and figure out who handles them, and then reach out. And honestly, that's how I try to figure out who I work with. It's really outreach. I don't really go out and pitch to talent. I think that the incoming is how it happens, and then I sit down and I look at the image, and I was a model agent. Like, I'm a fashion image person, and so I have to feel like I can sell the image and also build out sustainable businesses with the talent. I think that's the one thing that's super important for me long term, is that an influencer that I work with has the potential and the want and the need and the desire and the passion to build out their long-term sustainable businesses, whatever it is. That's like from Danielle being like, I have overalls and swimsuits, and I want to do a book, and I want to do a tech company, and I want to do that blah, 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 and trying to figure out a way to do all those and help get the girls there. So anyway, that was my little part. But also, I think, Lauren, tell me more about, your business structure and how your business has changed from really needing, because I worked with Lauren when she was at Starworks, and digital wasn't always a huge part of your strategy in your business. And then, is this part of the strategy of every single one of the brands that come to you? Like, are they really interested in influencer marketing and needing to enter the space?
I think eventually everybody gets there. Not to date myself, but when I started doing this, there was no such thing as Instagram. We did celebrity placement, and what we would do is every night you would go on Getty Images, and there was one photo agency to look at, and you would be like, cool, there's one photo that you can send to your client, and you could have a peaceful night. And now we sit in bed tracking Instagram stories until 2 a.m. It's a very, very different time, but I think you just do your best and try to be aware as you possibly can. I think a client says they're not interested one day, the next day they are. So, I think we're just staying as on top of it as we possibly can and trying to work with as many different girls as possible as well. It's like you cannot just use the same 5 people.
Right.
And that's why you want to work with nice people, I think, hopefully, both, for us on the client side, on the agent side, and on the influencer side as well. There's a huge pool of people. So I think
those influencer trips are rough when someone's not awesome.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
and on my side, you're trying to manage, and Jen gets this too, a lot of different personalities. So it's, you're one person and you're trying to make it feel like you're there for everyone, but there's 20 people and 20 schedules that you're trying to manage. And it's a very personal business as well. But I think digital is growing, and for us, because we do both celebrity and influencer, we've been just trying to take that leap into that business, because a lot of people on my side just do celebrity or just do influencer.
Right.
And I think that you can see the differences in those business, and we're kind of one of the only agencies that's, I think, is really doing both on like the more luxury side.
Yeah, that trip to San Tropez was Zimmermann was awesome. That was a great moment, I think, in luxury for people to see that you're bringing influencers and traditional celebrities together on a trip like that.
Yeah, it's
cool.
and that's, again, it's a nice thing when you can reward people that have been really supportive of our brands and clients for a long time. You know, I know Jen because Danielle Bernstein was one of the first people that started coming to Zimmermann's shows, and there's a loyalty that's established when you guys are doing events very early on. It's not because, you know, you're necessarily paying all these people to sit front row. For us, we were very fortunate that the first attendees of those shows were Ami Song, Danielle Bernstein, JC Dupree, and I don't even think Instagram really existed quite yet when they were starting to sit front row for us. And so now when we do open a store internationally, like Danielle gets invited, and it's a great fun time. But you have to kind of know sometimes you guys are starting on the same page and starting something together and building towards something that's larger.
Right. Can you guys share a mistake that you made in your careers this far? I mean, I know building a business, it's just like there's lots of mistakes that you find.
I think not investing in a good lawyer from the get-go. I pay my own bills, and so when I was starting out and thinking about spending, $1,000, having someone overlook a contract is something that was like, I don't have $1,000 right now to over. I should have, and now I always will, because you're basically investing in your future, because nothing is worse than getting into an uncomfortable, bad contract financially and mentally, having to have those awkward conversations. I think always just making sure that the business side of things is smooth and seamless is my biggest learn for sure.
Yeah. Do you want me to come back to you?
Our business will be 2 years old in December, so it's been an exciting 2 years for us. And I was at a very large agency before, which now randomly no longer exists. So it's been a fascinating ride to kind of build a business and watch something that you thought was going to be a mainstay. But I think just not taking anything for granted is probably the best advice. And I think it's cliche to say trust your instincts, but I think that that's right as well when you're building a business. And that's been, for us, releasing people from some contracts when they weren't working well, and knowing that that's okay too. And, the money isn't always worth it if you're not vibing with somebody. Like, let it go.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and move on to focus your energy on people that understand you and want to work with you and collaborate with you and trust the advice that you're giving.
Cool. And I would say the same, to what Pia said. For me, I'm building businesses with talent, but I left the agency I was at for 13 years, 2.5 years ago, and to figure out the back end of my business and the business aspect of it was like there was a learning curve there. I told these guys, like, my first business manager that I had, like, did not let me have access to my money, like no credit cards, no checkbook, no nothing. I brought in a forensic accountant, and it was because I was a woman in fashion. That's what he came to me with, and I'm like, that is the saddest, lamest thing I've ever heard in 2017 at the time. And so it really made me realize that I need to be the boss of my own finances, the back end, understand the legal team that I'm bringing on, and I have a responsibility to the girls that I'm representing to learn these things, and also for myself. It's been a huge learning experience. Does that mean 5 minutes? Do we get to take questions? Awesome. Guys, any questions? Right.
So I've had an influence manager a couple of times, and it's gone really badly wrong. What's your advice for finding the right manager for you?
I think you have to date before you get married. But also in having a manager, there's also an amount of trust. Like, you give it up, and that's super scary. And it's also kind of necessary at the beginning, too. I think it's a conversation. Like, I've been burned before. and this is really scary. I will give you access to my business. Let's try it for 6 months. You know, I think that having the conversation, them knowing you've been burned, I've had a couple girls that I've handled like that, and I'm very careful with them too, to let them know that they can trust me. I also think that there's a lot of incoming, and then you forward incoming to your agent, and then you never hear back about it. And you're like, okay, like it just disappeared into the ether. Like what happened? And so knowing that you can question those things, what happened to this? Was there no money? Was it just for trade? Like blah, blah, blah. Having that conversation and constantly feeling like you could communicate. I think that you have to continue doing outreach to agents and stuff. And like I said, go back to the girl or the talent that you respect their businesses. Work backwards, find who their agent is. If it's another agent at the agency that you are able to hit up because maybe there's no bandwidth, like take those meetings, and then you have to go with your instincts and pray that this is the right one. But there's a little like trial and error, and I'm sure you're feeling it, but I think that just letting them know that they've got 6 months, let's try this together. I will give you my business. Like for 6 months, we will work together on this as a team collaboratively. But then after that, adios if it doesn't work. And that's okay. It's okay. Might not be the right bet. Do you guys want to be in charge of that? Okay.
Hello. As a company that wants to work with influencers, what's the best way to approach them? Do I slide them a DM or... and then how do I pay them per post, one-time payment, monthly payment, et cetera?
So much of what the people that I work with is literally through DM, even with you.
Yeah.
So I think you'll be surprised how many girls there's so many girls that have like millions of followers, but like they're looking at their DM. So in terms of like how many posts then I defer to my agent, but DMing is definitely a perfect, brilliant, easy, fabulous way to start a conversation.
I think first you start with gifting, and you'd see if they're going to respond to working together on a gifting basis. And it obviously depends on how big they are and whatever, but start there, see how they like it, and then go back and hit them up. And then there's going to be a rate per, everybody has their price, so then you have to just get into that kind of gnarly weeds conversation. Does that mean we're wrapped up? Yeah. All right, guys, cool. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.